Where's that? See, the agenda package. Click to join the webinar.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Coming for you.
Thank you
Not a
very
problem.
much. Just shut it down, and if you can turn the speaker off, that would be great. And
Okay.
we'll take care of the rest tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys.
All set.
And maybe I'll see some of you over at Colchester. Or the Civic Center, or whatever it is.
Bye-bye.
Oh, come on. Coming up with that email. Says, we click to join the webinar. There we go. All right. Host would like you to speak. No, I don't want to speak here. I want to speak there. Okay. All right, so we're ready for our June meeting, and let me bring up. So the first is the roll call. So we'll start on my left.
Tom Olson, member.
Ann Schmidt, member.
Kristen Nastasi, member.
Larry Dunn, chair,
Ray Rafferty, vice chair.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
and the meeting is in order. So the first item of business is approval of minutes, and that was provided in the handout for May 2nd. So
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
any discussions, clarifications? Everybody's name is spelled right? Okay,
I didn't say anything.
I didn't look that.
all right, all approve,
Bye.
unanimously approved. And the next is public communications. Is there anyone?
I have one personnel. No, it's just you. I have no one else.
How come I'm not?
No,
in
there's
this
another,
panel?
oh, that's the other one is the,
Oh, yeah, there's.
yeah,
That's this person.
it's, so the host and Larry, that's it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, I see. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
So,
probably all busy with that Colchester stuff.
Unless you want me to elevate you to panel.
yeah, elevate me because I do want to present stuff.
Okay. I
Thank you.
just elevated you.
I've been elevated. There we go. Okay. All right. So there's no one for public communications, although I'd be remiss if I didn't point out Mr. Olson's participation and great sponsorship and passive getting the trail with Greenways recognized, approved, and was recognized on Friday.
Friday, it's past Friday.
And was so noted in the day, so that was.
Probably
was thunder.
Yeah.
So now the question is, can we get some money?
Yeah, apply for it.
We gotta apply for it. That's the next task. Let's see, and item of business. So what we did first on the menu, Michelle, was to put you up front
Thank you. I
so
appreciate
that we could, so you could leave. And we can get the MS4 update. So without further ado, I will yield the floor.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm Michelle Maitland from the Department of Public Works. I'm a project management specialist, and I manage a variety of things, or coordinate a variety of things, including the environmental compliance, which the primary task of that is the MS4, which is the municipal separate storm sewer permit through DEEP. That manages stormwater and stormwater systems, and it's a very broad and all-encompassing type of program to reduce non-point source pollution in stormwater. I have provided just like kind of a request, and you might have already gotten that by email in advance of the meeting anyway. But I also, on top of that, just which was only tangentially related, is this new brochure. It's just a reprint of a brochure, but it came in today, so I thought I would give you one. And that's a citizen's guide to pollution prevention that is handed out through the town clerk's office with anybody who gets a dog license. And because there is a little panel in there on preventing pet pollution. That's just an example. But to the task here, in terms of the MS4, under, I had to write it, this is why I put this here. Section 6A, 6C of the MS4 permit is a town property audit. Oh, this is just on this little.
On the sheet.
Yeah, I didn't, that's the
Okay.
reference in the
Okay.
permit, which is like 70 pages. So, there's not a strict mandate to do property audits. It just, as was summarized in the town's stormwater management plan, the task is to maintain properties, parks, and other facilities that are owned, operated, or otherwise the legal responsibility of the town to minimize the discharge of pollutants to its MS4. So we, as I stated here, the town, the public works already has a robust SPCC program for spill prevention. And then the MS4 is like more broad. And then there's the there were 250 town-owned parcels when I first coordinated with NOAA last spring, and I understand that number kind of is like shifting.
Not a lot, just ones and twos.
Yeah, I don't know. So, our primary concern is ones with buildings on them or pavements, porta potties, things that can be direct pollutants. And for those, we are working with facilities in parks and rec, and then the Board of Ed. But to be thorough, we wanted to do a due diligence for the undeveloped properties. Tom and Kristen know that I'm kind of new to this thing, so I understand, like, I did a little draft of a checklist that a volunteer might use. It says, for open space checklist, but I kept on, you guys could mark this up and say like, oh, you clearly don't know what you're talking about, because I say like, is there a porta potty on there? Maybe there's never a porta potty on an open space. Or is there a pavement? Maybe not. But I kind of picture too that there might be like pavement that was like abandoned and there's full pavement.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
because we have 7, 8 different layers of open space definitions.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so you're proposing that this checklist be applied to which of those layers? Is that open space with facilities, open space without facilities? That someone else would take care of, if they had facilities on it?
Okay, so then, and I didn't make all copies, and I gave you one of these, Larry, in front of you, which was the list that I was working with. And so the top lists are the things that are covered by the SBCC are on here. And then we get to parks. So anything that would be a parks thing wouldn't be conservation commission. Anything that was a school site. And then there seem to be all these other ones. It's really like we're just asking for your help. So whatever you agreed to do,
Sure.
you could just say, this is what we agreed to do.
I guess if I go back to the POCD, it outlines dedicated open space, which is essentially vacant open space. Then there's managed open space,
Yeah.
which is basically all parks and rec type of sites. And then there's facilities, open space facility, which is basically 90% public works responsibilities.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that third, so it's
And that
dedicated,
also includes
managed.
the Board of Ed is also in that file.
Okay. So
Facilities.
dedicated, managed, and the third is
Facilities.
facilities. Okay.
So from your auditing perspective, I can see where there's a hole because nobody is responsible in the master thing of the dedicated open space, the vacant areas. So if I was to give you examples of this, such as the Joel property, where we have an encampment on it, okay?
yeah.
Of homeless people living there
Oh.
today.
Oh.
Okay, then another good example is the Industrial Drive open space, just on the outflow of the, of your water treatment facility.
Yes.
Okay, there is a bunch of dumping down there.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are, again, those are, could give you two examples
Yeah.
where there would be questionable stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are,
The
you're
latter
basically
I knew
looking, you're
about
coming to
first.
us as the purveyor of the dedicated open space. There's nobody else to talk to
Yes.
to see if we have developed a volunteer workforce to go off and support doing an audit of these empty, vacant areas.
Yes.
So that's fair to say that?
That is fair.
Okay.
What our big, so what you may not know about the MS4 is the state, because it's an unfunded mandate, they did have to build in this MEP standard, which is maximum extent practicable. And so it's really just kind of a good faith effort. And so that's what we're trying to do, good faith effort. If we get none of the open spaces done, then, and we might arguably still be ahead of most other towns.
Well, let me throw this out. There are 14 properties that we have created.
Yeah,
Created
right.
stewardship plans for. And in those documents, there is a lot of the answers to these questions.
Yes.
So my thought to the team here would be that we should be willing to sign up to those 14 properties, which, by the way, are the bigger ones. It covers from an area point of view.
Yeah.
You know, at least 80%, I think.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
easily,
Easily, you know, of the properties.
of the total acreage.
Yeah.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's
But-
fantastic.
But here's my counter thing, is that we have this list.
Yeah.
Which I would suggest that we as a commission scrub a bit.
Yeah.
And then add it to Noah's database. I'm throwing this out so that there's there's an ongoing record of the results of the audit. Is that?
Well, if I had known about this when I wrote the first stewardship plan, I could have incorporated right into the matrix of all the
That's
things.
what I was
that's
thinking,
done.
it's like another line on the matrix is do an
Right.
audit.
Conducting an audit.
Right.
It's just another line to the recommendations that we do for each.
Yeah, okay.
Right, that's, and Michelle's got that master, she's been the keeper of the
Right.
master list of everything that has to get done. I'm the author, she's the keeper, okay, of all the actions. So this would just be a new action that's
Yeah,
now come to us, which we can, this is a dynamic program. And so
Yep.
we
No,
can
no,
add-
no, that- yeah. that-
And as far as for the first ones, from my having been on all these properties, I'm pretty familiar, could probably almost
You just go through it.
ghostwrite
Go
the
back.
first one of these.
Well, that's kind of where I was going, but I wanted to make sure that we agreed with the list.
Yeah, and you might, yeah,
So,
I could understand.
Well, I guess but the requirements come from you, right? That's what these are the requirements, because that's what you audit to is requirements.
Yeah.
Not
True,
just
but-
good to feel.
You can say not applicable if it's not applicable.
but, yeah, but she
Oh,
also
yeah.
asked us to, that this was her take on it and asked for a feedback. So I was responding to that.
And that was, and this was an adaptation I made of a thing that the engineering firm gave to us that was for all the properties. And so, I mean, I just chunked out some huge sections of this. It's like 3 pages for the board.
So I have a question, is this something that we would want to have done annually or
I would say.
how often is this?
First of all, it's whatever we come up with. I mean, I think that I would be very delighted if we did every 5 years, which is.
So I think maybe
perfect
5 years,
perfect
yeah.
cycle.
We could put, we could put this in, amend all of the plans, next time they amend it.
Yeah.
Just add, this is a 5-year process to do an audit. That's easy. Now, getting someone to do another story, but having it in the plan is really easy.
Well, not quite easy because all of our plans are published. We'd have
No,
to-
in the next updates, the next time we have to change something
Oh, okay,
else,
okay.
add, doing an audit every 5 years.
But
Which
sometimes
this-
volunteer management is like people want a task.
Right.
Sometimes it's like.
This is an easy
here's a
one.
checklist.
Exactly.
Nice to have a little hike and walk around and look at some stuff.
They will just walk this down.
Right, so So other comments or good points? Or-
I'm not quite sure where we're going, so I'm just jumping in right now, brand new. And looking at the open space properties that the town has. So you're looking for possible pollutants involved with the stormwater discharge that comes off the property.
Comes off of the state standards, yeah.
So if, so basically, we need to walk the sites, let's say every 5 years, and what we're looking for are sources of problems.
Yes.
Is there any record? Would there any records of actually measuring or looking at the discharges coming off the properties? Chemical analysis. Because if we walk through and it's just woods. But what we don't know is what went on there 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And then there may be past some sort of storage or auto parts washing, something, a building that was there and left a footprint,
Yes.
but over time the building's gone. Everyone's gotten about whether it was there or not, but we're getting a little bit of leachate coming out that has a signature on it that should be walked or identify what its source is.
Yeah.
And then mitigate it from there.
I don't know if, not hearing a specific question, I'll just kind of respond, that there are a number of monitoring programs already in place in different kinds of sources. So the town, as part of its MS4 obligation, we have an engineering firm doing sampling throughout the town. And there's like, the Groton utilities that does water sampling, there's other sampling opportunities. But much of the town's water sources are unassessed. And so this kind of audit process, the whole MS4 program, which is like an EPA program that comes down through the state, is the idea is to get to that point, kind of start capturing this information that you're talking about to try to prevent non-point solutions or catch things that are unrecognized. So that's what this is all about. It's just
My
to try-
assumption in asking us to do this audit is not to do any scientific measurement, sampling or any of that. It's just a visual exam,
Yes.
if anything was there, or if we saw it.
Yeah, and you could mark, like, it seems like there's a framework of this, and somebody remembered this, and then it would just add to the layer of information that might point in certain directions. So like, there's a Shellfish Commission, Groton was talking about finding pollutants and not being able to find the smoking gun yet, right? So it's like these kinds of things will be layered upon layered and try to point to, so like maybe then we start sampling at a certain space that's not being sampled yet because of some context.
But my net is we're not responsible for technical sampling.
Definitely not. Hey, that's expensive.
Would it be fair to say that this audit is just would result in future actions that would be falling under your responsibilities to go investigate?
Right.
But we wouldn't have any responsibility for that. That would
Yes.
we turn these into you. It says this is a potential problem area that requires further investigation, such as sampling or whatever.
Yes.
That becomes an MS4 specialist issue. Not
That's what I was thinking, just
That
bring it to
was-
their attention.
That was my assumption going in.
Exactly. Also, like, for instance, there is something that, I don't know, 8 years from now, something happens, and then we say, gosh, did we miss, was that always there? And then we're like, okay, well, we know that here at this date, 5 years ago, there was nothing noted then. So we have like a baseline, like, okay, somebody looks, I mean, you can't cover every inch, but it's just the idea of trying to get a baseline.
So we throw that's a motion. that would support the MS4 audit for those properties where the commission has drafted and approved stewardship plans. 14 or something. 14. And I would say most of this items are kind of covered in there already. But then, to your point, we have to then add an action to our stewardship plan to then support the industry. So I think the simple motion would be that we move to add an additional action to our stewardship plan to support. Is there a name on this particular paper? The open space checklist?
Yeah.
About the MS4 open space checklist.
Yes.
But this would be only for dedicated open space as opposed to just.
Yeah,
general.
Not
only for
Our
our
dedicated-
stewardship.
What we have
documented
responsibility for.
plans.
So, but can I ask a question about the 14? Are there any of the other, outside of 14, are there any other, are there any of the other properties that don't yet have a stewardship plan that probably where site water, stormwater drains into an on-site water body?
Potentially, because there's this, when you talk about the stormwater drains, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's where, when I go to, I see these just about on every open space parcel that I've been to. And so I can't answer you positively on that, but I can answer you that the vast majority of the acreage is captured in the stewardship plans, because we basically have any parcel greater than 5 acres, 4 acres right now, I think it is, has a stewardship plan.
Oh, and that's what, okay, so I just, right.
So
and I
if
did
everything
1
is-
acre,
but-
so that's why my list is so much bigger.
Right, but there's a lot of small ones that we just haven't got. Now,
Yeah.
some of the stewardship plans, if these things are nearby each other, we put them under a stewardship plan. So you may have like 5 parcels in one stewardship plan. Okay, so it's just not 1-to-1. You're just not getting 14 parcels. You get a lot more than 14 parcels, but because of adjacency. Okay, so we were looking forward to say you do pick up smaller parcels, but that's going to get. We're confident when we say you've got the 80% solution by just looking at the currently approved stewardship plans. So I think we
They're out there on the conservation website, town website.
Yeah.
All there for you.
Yeah.
To absorb.
Right, and all the stewardship plans are available. They're available on the plans are on the website, as well as they're also in the database.
And do you do, that's updated every 10 years?
The POCD is updated every 10 years. The next time is in 2026.
Yeah.
But our inventory is
Yeah.
live.
Okay. Oh, I was just gonna say that, so like, if in the next update of your conservation plan, if you're gonna add, there's 14 stewardship documents and you're gonna add 5 more, if it can be things, if you can prioritize things that stormwater goes into open water.
How about you each turn?
Yeah.
We'll look at that. Take that under advisement.
We'll start with, like I said, the 80%,
I'm excited.
All
I'm
right.
excited for that.
which provides you a reference point where the
Yeah.
data is. And, if an action, we add this.
Well, not only that, the other thing I was gonna say is that once we have this in the form that we want it, in the stewardship manual that I'm currently putting together, we can include a section
Right,
on
How to execute
MS4 audits, including the checklist.
right.
And we can
That's a good
even put in there that we have a priority to note where there's storm drains that go into go to water sources. What
Yeah.
did you say what the priority was?
Well, there's 2, I mean, there's 2 different, whether there's
So
storm.
second line 2 of the checklist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the
Stormwater
first thing is,
drainage
we have the stewardship plans. What Michelle's talking about is that we're creating a how-to manual to execute on the stewardship. plan.
Yeah.
And so this is something that.
So just get a section in the
Yeah,
manual
yeah,
yeah.
explaining it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was gonna ask Ray if I answered your questions or.
Some of them. One of the things about the open space in Groton is that a lot of the ones that we now have on this list of 14 are not, Tom has done a great job of going out and walking them. So for the rest of us, we'll sit at a meeting, we have a list of properties that are being set aside and we want to have set aside. But that doesn't necessarily mean that once we, let's say the town acquires that open space, that we've actually walked it for a reason to go out and see what it is. Other than it's just passed along, so, oh, by the way, you just got this new property.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like is that this is presenting a new direction of actually walking these properties, let's say every 5 years, to make sure that we're in compliance with this list, for instance, or that the elements of this list have been adequately identified on the property. And then it goes into your matrix.
Yeah.
From there. But one of the things that that I always scratch my head at is about on the stormwater is actually the monitoring of, because we all can guess what might be in stormwater, but some stormwaters are worse than others. And I always ask that stormwater management on commercial properties, how often does the town actually go in and check the drains, the stormwater management system that they have, to know, is the property owner addressing any sort of spillage and making sure it doesn't get washed out on that. And the most difficult part of that to me is that not all of that, nobody has the time or the interest necessarily to monitor all that. And only if something red flag, suddenly you're out measuring something and boom, it's there. Where'd it come from? Now we start the search. But for instance, during the wintertime, there's what's used to be called Electric Boat Annex down on Quantic Road. There's a huge parking lot down there,
Yes.
and it's a fabulous storage area for snow. Off of all
You're
sorts
talking
of,
about a crop like down by Catherine Kolnaski.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
They did just finish, or they just redid that site to mitigate the stormwater issues there. They just finished it last summer. So they reported to the Baker Cove Watershed Committee. that
Right, right. Well, that group has been very active with Baker's Cove area, which is great, which is elevating some of the sensitivities on these. But for instance, on that snow pile, when you look at it, it's dirty snow. It's, it's from all over the parking lots and streets and so forth. The commercial interest. And then I don't know if anybody actually monitoring the melt off. It goes directly into Baker's Cove and out into Water Sound. So it's,
That may or may not be, but that's not what you're talking about.
no, what I'm saying is that it's nice to identify it, right?
But that is one of our stewardship plan areas, so.
And there are multiple, Groton Utilities has some monitoring going on in Baker Cove watershed and the airport. Eastern Connecticut Conservation District has a grant, 319 grant submitted to the EPA right now. And we'll find out in August that they submitted for a sampling, track down sampling of Birch Lake Creek for sampling that to Cape Watershed Committee. So there are efforts, but sampling, as you, if people don't know, it's expensive. So that's the problem. I mean, it's not just like labor and time and interest, it's the lab fees and the transportation and the timing of when the lab is open, and the rainfall, and it has to be X amount of flow for.
It's not flowing.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so I will entertain a motion. Someone like to throw it out?
I move that we include the MS4 audit process in our open open space. Stewardship plans.
I'll second that.
Right, so the motion of agreeing and adding the MS for open space checklist to our stewardship plans as we move forward, which parenthetically is the 14 properties that we're listed.
And anything else we develop plans for in the future.
Second.
I did it.
This is what's up.
I'll third it.
You'll third it? All right. Discussion. Okay, so let's take a vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, so you have 80% of what you came for.
That's fantastic. It's
Now, then the
great.
next question is, when are we actually going to then?
It's on paper.
It's-
Yeah,
that's-
it's on paper, so, just for, my suggestion was gonna be that the person subcommittee basically take a first run through from the existing plans to see what can be checked. And not necessarily, I'm not asking to go out and fill it in, but at least kind of give us a status of, based upon what's in the documents, how much of this is covered, how much. Can we-
Maybe you were just about to say it, but also to see if there's anything on the list that needs to be
Modified based upon the existing
before we
stewardship
actually go through.
That's what I would hope that you would
Yeah.
feel free to add things that say, or and say, like, this really is not relevant, and then educate me as to why, it's like.
So one thing that I really care is that is there yard waste, well, and then you have leaves, there are going to be a lot of leaves in stormwater areas.
And that would be
like
more
just
like
marking
great,
it.
collecting these
Yeah.
piles of leaves. So versus
Okay.
naturally falling.
So
Well,
we
I guess
don't-
that's-
Do the stormwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this, you're getting into some fine tuning as far as where you're going with this, because I can give you a good example is the Drozdek Drive property, okay? They just dump everything, all their leaves and everything is right on, and they dump it onto the town edge of the side of the property line, okay? They don't want it on their property. There's numerous activities in that, and again, that's a stewardship plan. So I guess we're gonna need some potentially better definition as far as what you're looking for, what is the priorities. And so, and I'll work with you, I'm in charge of the parcel task, I gave this to sort through this. No, I have no problem with it. I'll work on this over the next month here, but I would appreciate an electronic copy of this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, that way it'd be a lot easier for me to work starting from. Now I'll coordinate with Michelle as far as getting the final version, getting incorporated in the manual for how we're going to execute this.
I also want to just kind of go back to that maximum extent practicable, which I was trying to say. And I don't want to overbuild something, and I want it to be something that is reasonable and sustainable. The fact that most towns aren't even going to the step level, we want to be that.
Well,
We want
that's
to be that
why-
model town.
That's why we structured the motion the way we did.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's not just this thing on the side.
Yeah.
It's part of our core stewardship plan. It makes sense to look for things that might be amiss.
Right.
We turn that over to you, then
Yes.
you would then go investigate, do the monitoring, whatever it is to see if it's real, and then go to mitigation.
Yeah.
So we're kind of the tripwire for this stuff, but we're not any final determinator for whether or not there's a real issue.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's overall.
So you're looking for us to be the eyes for you of what we can see out there.
Correct.
That-
And I mean, from the state's perspective is that they want the towns to be like more responsible for like every square mile that they own. Like, which is, they know it's a heavy lift, that's, and this is like one task of a subtask of a subtask of a subtask of a larger task, so, but that's the direction that they're going. just kind of, I love that, your stewardship plan, it's kind of a stewardship model.
Well, that's
you know?
kind of what it is.
That's what it is, yeah.
right? It's-
That's what the MS4 is, it's just a massive stewardship.
All right.
Thank you so much. If there's no other questions, and I welcome, welcome any questions you have, if you ever want a presentation on the whole MS4, let's do that too.
But you do other monitoring, the town does monitoring certain areas, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Oh, yeah, and more on, like, you know, we have certain things that are, you know, we do monitor, the capped landfills have a very specific, different set of monitoring, you know, there's that's part of the issue too, is there's all this data being collected, and there's really not yet a sharing system.
That's another, that's
Yeah,
the next,
that's-
that's something else. Is what do you do with it? Well,
Okay, thank you for having me.
And thanks, Michelle, thank you.
okey doke. Next item on the agenda is plastic nips, etc. I did I did extract from the prior town meeting minutes what they said on that section, and it's like, hey, that was in the handout. So I assume you guys kind of looked at that. And I guess the big takeaway is that they did, you know, what do you do with the money? Right, they made our recommendations, and they, you know, they came up with, I thought, not, you know, a pretty reasonable approach of how they split it, and that the beautification committee get part of it, et cetera. So I don't have any problems with how they allocated the money. It seemed there was a little bit of, should the conservation commission have known about that activity? That was kind of my question to you guys. Is, I don't know whether we, you know, like, how do we keep track of all these things going on that might
What
reflect on
The
the
beautification.
beautification committee, for one.
Right,
So they were allocated monies
right.
to support an action that we recommended, and they said, oh, we were already doing that.
I wouldn't say that, from my viewpoint, well, our recommendation that I brought forward in that the thing was, I think it was taken a little, they took it in stride. I got a lot of comments when I attended that meeting and representing everyone here, and read my statement and stuff afterwards. Immediately afterwards, there was like a break because there was a lot of people in front of me making comments there. But I had 3 or 4 town councilors come up to me and said that was really, really great and stuff. And I think from that, what you saw was that Rachel Franco was one of the councilors that came to me afterwards. And specifically said, and then she kind of turned that around and said, wait a second, I'm running the beautification thing. And so let me flip it. So she went and grabbed all of it. Her initial motion was to grab all the money.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's fair. At least it got the discussion moving and stuff. And so I wouldn't portray it as that we didn't know what was going on. We knew what was going on. The specific things as far as having artwork with pollution component to it and stuff. That's great. If that's what they want to go do. It's something that maybe you could have better coordination or something. But I would say that everything that's going on.
I think you guys that go to these, you do a really good job of keeping track of what's going on in town. So I think we know a lot more than we would know if it was me trying to keep track of what's going on in town. So I think we do a great job of keeping the finger on the pulse of Tom. You got Larry and Chris. I mean, you guys that attend these things, and all you guys, they go to these different meetings and pay attention. I think we have a really good finger on the pulse.
I have a question on some of their suggestions. Is part of the beautification fee educational outreach of some sort
Yes.
about what the program is?
They intend to do it. I think.
Yeah.
One of the things that came out of this is that at our last meeting here, I saw that there was money coming in, but I didn't really recognize, and I probably should have done more research on it, but it was very brief. I mean, the thing was the
We met the
article
day
was on, the
before.
article was on Sunday and we were here Monday,
Right.
clearly the
It
second
wasn't
same
a lot of
day.
time.
Was that when they did over the ensuing week, there was research done by the staff, and then it was prefaced when they started the discussion by the town manager, is that the state law that put the thing in also restricted on how you can spend the money, and we didn't review that here as a group.
Oh.
And I did review that.
Yeah,
Just
we weren't
at-
fully
yeah.
in tune with that when
Right.
we made our
Yeah,
recommendation.
between the time we did it and the time the meeting was, I did go back and I went, oh, it's very restricted.
It's very restricted, right, I agree.
What it is, yeah.
But and so when Rachel had taken the information, she understood that, oh, if I focus my presentation this way, I'm in boom, 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 right in
In
line
line
with.
with the restriction.
Right, our recommendation was also in line, okay, in recommending these small grants and stuff. That's also, that's right in line also. So we weren't in violation or making something off the wall, but she was being more encompassing to the different areas that could be supported.
And this is just the first time.
First.
So this will, there'll be this funding unless we
Like
can
60
get a
grand
law.
year.
They're gonna get addicted to this money. They're never
Yes.
gonna wanna change the law,
Right.
which is a
That
problem.
was half a year, right? 66
Yeah,
was half.
33 is half a year.
Yeah, 33, yeah.
Oh, 33 was half a year.
Did my quick math.
6 months, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, my net is that there's no additional action by us. I guess that's kind of where I was coming out, given the action of the town council.
Right, so because this is all new, and then the beautification committees now got to decide what they're actually going to do.
Yeah, what they're gonna do. The direction was half to beautification commission and half to the stormwater, which is public works.
Right,
Versus
which is,
the other.
again, specifically one of the objectives of the money was supposed to go.
Right.
It's to
Yeah, I
go-
thought that the combination of the two seemed
Reasonable.
reasonable.
Yeah.
It's as reasonable as our recommendation,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Okay, so that was fine. The next item is Conservation Commission website and app update. There is a letter in the that you had at the last meeting, you directed me to provide such a letter. I did so. It's a copy is in here. I did get a note back from Bert that said I'll get back to you. I did have two conversations with John Reiner, who had told me that they would get back to me before today's meeting. He did not.
Yes, it didn't happen, huh?
He did not, and I pinged him on Friday, just says, are you gonna get to me on Monday before the meeting? And it was silence. So
He was at the Greenwood thing Friday, so maybe that's not gonna.
that doesn't. So I guess the status is I'm pushing on it. And I'm getting fairly aggressive that says, there's no reason why you shouldn't. Right, the fact that, oh gee, it may not be 100% accurate, it's never gonna be 100% accurate. Right? So I will continue to be pushy on that. So I will give John another call subsequent to this meeting. Who did promise me, well, he did say this week, and I then said you do it Monday, so I guess I kind of what actually happened. So I'll do John Reiner. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Let's see. We're done. All right, I kept my own notes to remind me to say things. So one of the things in the discussion with Reiner was that he floated a proposal to kick off a small group to, this is now my words after I got through discussion with it, that would be a precursor of the updated POCD to take another whack at defining the definition of open space. Because one of the things that he keeps complaining about is, oh, there's different definitions. Well, we're not, but there are different definitions. There isn't just one. However, I did agree with him that, and he asked, would the Conservation Commission participate? I said, of course we would participate. So I am anticipating that one of the actions is going to be, and I called it, if the POCD is supposed to be updated in 2026, they started in 2024, and I'm saying before that, at least 2023, you ought to have a definition of what open space is, right? So I'm kind of, that's what I'm saying, a precursor, I kind of stack this up. So, you know, so my thought is that in the next 12 months, you know, that we would have some members of the commission would participate in, and then we come back to the commission, participate in updating the POCD open space definition. I think would be the best way to phrase it. Right. So since I kind of went out and said that, is there anybody that disagrees, or should I amend that, or is that sound like a reasonable for us to do?
Yeah, I think we should be involved since we're going to be using the definition, right? So I think we should.
Okay. All right.
And are they gonna loop in other, like, let's say,
Yeah, he
GCA,
did.
for
Matter of fact,
example,
he kind of said he liked the fact that we and EDC got together on the data center thing. And wanted to bring in the EDC, for example. That's fine. To me, open space is an economic benefit to the community. I always said that. But, and he mentioned a few other folks, so that's a TBD. I think certainly if anyone has recommendations on who they think should participate, I think I mentioned, you know, obviously, you know, Gosha and Avalonia, you know, some of the folks that, GC, you know, the folks that are out there in the community as part of that team, they did have opinions last time I did this. So anyway, so I suspect, hopefully at our next meeting, I will be able to kind of get that down and provide some timeline of when that would happen. So that's mine.
Basically, are you suggesting something just pull together what the POCD says now, and then make a document? This is what the POCD says, and then you can add, this is what the Conservation Commission says, this is what COSA says, and so forth. And then trying then to
Well, my
sort
assumption,
that out.
my assumption, now we're talking process, which we never got discussion. My assumption is this is going to be staff level. But the staff would then extract the POCD definition, go to our plan of conservation, extract that definition, and then ask the other participants for their definition, at least as a starting. So yeah, I would say that, but I wouldn't say that we would do that since we would be a participant, but I would expect the staff to do that. That answers your question. And then we'll have more discussions on it. I mean, we've had many discussions on that, as I recall.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, here we go again.
As I recall, we spent your whole term on discussing the definition.
Oh, man.
So we've got another, that's like a 1 or 2 years. That's why I left, that's why I said a lead time. So I said, this is not going to be a short term discussion. Okay. The next thing was section 7. Let me bring that up. Then let me see if I can share
That's
that.
a good segue into the city versus town open space discussion, if you'd like me to.
That's a good point. So
Because-
should, you know, do we include the city in the definition? Which would make
Oh,
sense.
no, it should be, isn't it, for the whole municipality of the
Yeah.
town of Groton, so it actually should apply to no anchoring in Groton.
I would, yeah, see, I agree with that too.
Yeah,
So that is one of the, I threw it up there, for all of the people visiting,
Well, me too.
or might visit. So that one is down here. Let's see. It's in here someplace.
Oh, I didn't write down which one it was. Oh, wait a minute, I have my whole list though.
Remember which one that was.
7.4.
7.2.
2.7.4. Yeah, 7.2.7.4.
7.2.7.4. Here we go, right there. Okay, and it has your name on it. Okay,
Yeah,
all right, so
okay.
floor is
So
yours.
I was getting all wound up in how to do this because of open space definition. So as I started looking at the city and how some of the things were categorized, so it might just be the way they're categorized that might not be consistent. And so Larry, after the last meeting, I remember saying, so I talked to Larry. Larry was very helpful, just to use what it is currently, not trying to make a judgment. It's not my role to make a judgment. I'll just tell you what is in the GIS tool, which is very handy currently with the city versus the town. Now, what I did, so just a couple of things. I looked at the 2019 POCB from the city of Groton, which is kind of interesting. The city has about 2,000 acres of land. 15%, 300 acres is zoned for recreation and open space. So Washington Park, Shinnecosa, Fort Griswold, etc. 16%, so 320 acres of the land area is used as open space. This is just from the POCD little extracts that I took out. For the 2019 POCD plan for the city, again, open space is defined as land permanently preserved from development and committed in perpetuity, I'm probably not saying that part right, for conservation, passive recreation, such as trails, or preservation of community character. Note that active recreation fields and areas are addressed in section whatever. Okay, just copy that up. The open space plan in the part of the POCD talks about existing open space and desirable open space. And Birch Plain Creek was one of the areas that was desirable. Okay, so now if you just go into the GIS tool, and so some of the things, so what I did, took me a while to figure this out because there are state, town, and city-owned properties in the city of Groton, and there's also city, town, and state in the town of Groton. So it gets very confusing pretty quickly, but it's very simple once you figure that out. And when you realize that the fire district for city of Groton, it's just city of Groton. So I could very easily export all the data, sort it for the city of Groton, and then figure out that the different categories. So just doing that city-owned dedicated space, open space, is 64.4 acres, but it includes Washington Park, which to me is not quite what we're thinking of. There certainly are facilities there, the ball fields and that kind of thing. So city-owned managed space, there's 15.55 acres, and that includes Eastern Point Beach, and no comment necessarily there. I think that's perfectly fine. City-owned open space is 0.23 acres, and then state-owned dedicated open space is 19.86 acres, and that includes Fort Griswold. I'm assuming there are facilities on there, but
Not
again,
a lot.
not a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't have to go into each detail here, but I went and categorized everything. The total amount of dedicated space based on that terminology is 125 acres. Managed space is 181 acres, and open space with facilities is 103 acres. In the POCD, so I didn't come up with the same percentages that they did. So they had, unless you add, the first two comes about to 300 acres, which is zoned 15%, 300 acres zoned for recreation open space. That's probably about accurate. It's just how they categorized it, maybe. So when you do the same exercise for the town of Groton, we basically already had most of that data. So this excludes the city. There's about 3,000 acres of dedicated open space, managed open space 2,300, and with facilities about 800 acres. When you add them together, you have that data. So that's as far as I got. Yeah.
I was just curious where the golf course fit into that.
That is managed open space. Yeah, that did, because that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a lot of space.
Yeah,
The animals like
I
it.
think that's,
The town owns it.
yeah, the town owns it.
Oh, the town owns the golf course.
Yes,
And
yeah.
manages it.
And likewise, they're in the town, the city owns, like the Groton Utilities managed space area. And there's a couple other dedicated open space that they have some acreage around some of these watersheds and that kind of thing. So,
Can I ask another question to understand? So the point of social justice in this is
well,
to,
that's a whole other.
is about people's access to open space. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
That's, yes, and so I was thinking dedicated open space, but then again, I wasn't thinking of Washington Park in my head that way.
Right.
Yeah. So then overlapping kind of an economic income, social justice piece was another layer, which I have the map for that, but I haven't actually tried to, I thought we'd try and at least, I'd like some guidance on what to do from here. I mean, in terms of how things are categorized and whether they.
Well, I think we started from the position that, or at least a perception that, yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
that's the right word, that the western part of the town, the city is underserved
Yes,
versus the rest of the town. And so, given what you've just done, is that a true statement or not?
so again, it depends on what you're saying, access to what. So if you're talking about access to something like Pequot Woods, no, to Washington, something with ball fields and
I mean, I
recreation.
would think for the purposes of this, again, open for discussion, it would be not just dedicated open space, but also, with facilities, meaning ball fields, things that people can then utilize outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, not a,
Then do you include the golf course? If people don't play golf or can't afford to play golf or,
But isn't it by definition in a city where it's much denser,
yeah,
by definition, there's gonna be less access to open space. I mean, that's not a social justice issue, that's the fact that it's a city versus town.
but access doesn't mean that
that
they can
was
have
the
access
next-
to the city to the town. In other
Yeah.
words, is there things on the western part of the town
Yes, there
property
is.
that's
The
accessible
Secaucus-
to
The new one, the Secaucus.
Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, well, back here, Wall Street, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Right, so it's not, we can't do this either or, I think it's this, you gotta look at it holistically, which is kind of the point of defining it. So when you're asking for direction, I think that's kind of like how you'd like to define it. In my own view, it would include the places that people can get outdoors and quote, play, right? Which could include golf courses.
Or just go for a walk even. Someplace you go for a walk in
Yeah,
the
a
nature.
trail,
nature.
yeah.
Go for a walk in nature.
It doesn't have to be pure open space definition that we've been using for conservation per se. Then the question is, what's access mean? So now we got, I mean, a lot of folks, they start doing 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, or whatever, in terms of accessibility, which then eliminates city town boundaries. But then says, do I have public transportation to get from A to B?
Right.
Which then could, override the fact that, oh gee, I don't have a car, right, and I can't drive there, but I have, city facilities to get there. So as we get into that, I think it's a different look versus what we normally do in terms of, the birds and the bees and the trees and all that kind of stuff. And, it's really people's access. Access is just as important as the square footage of land.
Yep.
And even though we have that in our conservation plan, we haven't done a lot, and I know we did a little bit, but not a lot in our stewardship plan. One of the things when we get the action list is I personally was interested in how do we improve, as part of stewardship, improve places to park. Because I've been looking around the state now that I got my RV, that they're actually using it, is the ability, oh, yes, it's 1,000 acres. Well, but there's like 2 parking spots on the side of the road. And it's like, it kind of like defeats the purpose of it. I mean, I'm talking about that you don't need paid parking lots. I mean, you could have something that's a field, or whatever, that's permeable. So I think accessibility is something that, probably needs to spend a little more time on, certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
But that to me says accessibility of transporting people from the city to someplace else. So where do we go from here, I guess, is the question of social justice, your question.
And we don't know yet, or this came out of the previous town council, this request, I believe, right? And did you reach out to, I think you reached out to her. We haven't.
Yeah, no, they, yes, and the city didn't want to see anything, but it did kick them off to do a few more things on conservation, as I saw. So we prompted some action on the city's part. So that's not a bad thing, but I think if we could provide data or, make suggestions or talk about, are there, city buses or something that
Right.
might add a stop. Or
Right.
whatever recommendations that we can go back to them on and kind of fulfill that initial question and say, hey, we've done some research, here's kind of late night. And yeah, your point, well, yeah, of course there's less, we know that, but right,
Can they get to,
can they get to A to B? And oh, by the way, yes, if you look at, playgrounds and things that have access to the public, it's, maybe it's a little better than what you thought it was. That's some, my view is, and then some recommendations. And if we don't end this with a couple of recommendations, like I said, gee, I'm just guessing here. If we added one stop to the city bus route, that might stop at Bluff Point or something.
right.
Idea, a stretch to go to Bluff Point. No, nothing's that far away.
Drop them off at the Dairy Queen.
I know, right? That's what.
Well, no, right
that's
across,
what I
you've got
think
that,
it probably
you've got that
really
little
stops
part,
there anyway.
the boardwalk there that can walk you right into Bluff Point, so I don't know. But I think that's kind of where we're at. I haven't heard the new council asked about it at all. So I guess, do we want to continue this?
Keep our ears open.
Yeah.
From my viewpoint, I think we, as the Conservation Commission, we should be making recommendations all the time and stuff, and how to improve things, and how to improve both the areas that are conserved as well as the utilization of these areas. And that's one thing that's lacking in the POCD. I just went through and there's really no discussion of this whole area. We added it as the team of us to the open space conservation plan in hopes that that can now be exported into the next future POCD. Because we did, took a look at other conservation plans that have developed in the interim, And there's been a large thrust in other communities to have a more open-mindedness, particularly in areas where access isn't there. To be honest with you, we're doing pretty good in the big picture compared to other communities because of the variety of stuff that we have, the accessibility of trails to the lower economic census areas and stuff. So it's the minority.
Even the
census
tri-tail system.
the tri-town trail system and the
Goes through the
greenways,
city. Right.
it was a big seller with them. Because this is the two greenways that were just approved here went right through the major areas that are your census areas.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
So that's something in the update that
would be
that
a-
provides access, that's
Yeah.
one of the definitions of accessibility, the trail
Right.
goes through there. Right, so
We need
all
to
it
take
needs is a
credit for
bike
that
or
kind of
your
things
feet,
that we're
right,
doing, right.
or some of it
Yeah,
is.
for bikes and hiking and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have been doing things. It's been very slow paced. It's not, bells and whistles and all this kind of stuff, but it does happen. And I think we just need to make sure that we get that documented. And then look at opportunities as they come for future, acquisitions or conversions.
So your suggestion is that the output of this action would be to provide input recommendations to the city and perhaps to the town about how to improve accessibility and or improve the social justice equation,
Well,
and then to push it to get into the next POC. Is that, no?
The POCD tends to be more general with the thoughts. And thinking that the Greenway proposals that are out there, and then where, for instance, thinking next to Pfizer, Brantford Manor and so forth is a huge housing development, relatively low income, and you're thinking, what are their open space access, for instance, because that's a really dense apartment complex. It's right up against the, what used to be Westside Middle School, and that's the elementary school. And there is access that we have Thomas Road, the other side of Bakers, that separates the Birthplace Creek that separates between the city and the town. There is open space right there. But I can't say that there's a whole lot of use of that open space.
Well, that's a separate issue as far as
Well,
you can leave, as long as you provide it, it doesn't mean people are gonna use it.
Oh, no, I'm not going there, but saying that the city is making efforts to develop trails and so forth for them, more so, to be more inclusive.
Right, and that's what the one area of the Groton Crosstown Trail that's still under development is that one stretch. And in my discussions, in shepherding the trail application for it was to make sure I was consistent with what the town of Groton is doing. Now, the town of Groton, the city of Groton, has the trail on there is basically what they wanted. Okay, because I met with Mayor Hendrick and stuff, and made sure that I was consistent with what they started at Sassacus is going to be continued through Muro Drive and into Washington Park, and then south through the middle to the Thames River Middle School and into the First Plain Creek Park that the town, the city owns, that connects us to the town property across the side, on the other side of the creek. So it's all put together, it's all integrated there. It's all it's just a matter of pushing through those next steps. Now, the person that they had assigned that from the city as the staff person to keep coordination was Joe Russ, who subsequently has left the city employment. Who now I haven't heard that the replacement has even been hired yet. They had somebody and that didn't work out. So there's a gap right now today as far as what's happening with it, but hopefully it's going to take some shepherding to make sure that effort continues in the future. But again, to me, a lot of that falls on the Trails Coordination Task Force. Mayor Hendrick actually came to the task force meetings and stuff, and so presenting what they wanted and everything. So they have a plan, and it's just a matter of following up with that.
right?
Yeah.
So, let's see, go back up here. So, oh, MS4, well, the first one we just did. Hey, so I can label that complete.
Great.
Sure.
All right. So 2.16.
Yay, yellow to green, woohoo.
It is surprisingly, we have actually been working the actions on.
Surprisingly, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot
We're
covered,
chipping away at
especially
it.
Tom, all credit to Tom, but really, there's a lot.
So as soon as he gets something done, give him her.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next one was the, the 490 discussion.
Yes, and that's mine. And I contacted face-to-face back at the end of March or end of April with Sue Sullivan was identified, and I just have not had contact with her. And I've been kind of busy too. I just faulty as far as trying to get hold of her, but she hasn't responded to my emails. I might have a long email address to follow up on that, but no action this month.
Right, green was Zal will come off for the next one. Then we have pollinator pathways, and I know there's been a lot of activity going on in pollinator.
Yes.
Good job,
Michelle,
Kristen.
thank you. We had our, under the auspice of the Conservation Commission, we had our, what was supposed to be a steering committee meeting to kind of get a core group of people to, you know, push it forward, but it sort of expanded into a launch. And so we had, I think, 23 people in person. We had technical difficulties, so there was about 8 or so people trying to get on Zoom, couldn't. So we had about 30 people there.
That was kind of sad that we couldn't get those other people on.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Michelle, for your help. It was like, I was not acknowledged as the host of the meeting, so I couldn't share, I
It
couldn't
was,
share the screen. It was, and if for some reason PowerPoints weren't loading, it was a show, pulled it out. But it was under the auspices of us, and we had a guest speaker from the president of the East Lyme Pollinator Pathway. She came and gave an informative talk. I thought
that was really good.
then she gave a talk, Marjorie Meekoff. And so we're gonna meet again in about 3 weeks. We have a whole bunch of different people from all, like we have the assistant manager of the town of Groton, City of Groton. We had a wide array of students, administrators, citizens, like a whole lot of different kinds of
Yeah, it was
people with
good.
different, like the head of the Groton school thing, you know, the school chef or whatever. The guy who's in charge of the food service for either Grass or Tech or whatever. Anyway, a whole bunch of people, a lot of enthusiasm. And then we have a kind of a shovel-ready project through ECCD, Eastern Connecticut Conservation District, which is Maura Roby, who's gotten a good-sized grant. I forget whether it's a large grant. I forget exactly how much, but specifically, she's building rain gardens and riparian pathways. But so we're going to dovetail with her, and we're talking about going along the Tri-Town Trail. You know, because they have a lot of money. They're going to make, I think, 7 rain gardens around, some for back wax, some at the library. So we're just going to merge with a shovel-ready project. And so anyway, we're sort of launched, I would say.
Very cool.
Good. Take their money with existing properties.
Take their money.
Yeah, I mean, she's got money. She wants help and
Merge.
support. You know, we've got people and volunteers and energy, and
Right, and why not put
Oh, yeah.
pollinator plants in rain gardens?
yeah, if you're gonna be planting, plant it.
Exactly, what a
Totally,
great,
yeah.
what a great combination, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, like I said, I think there was good enthusiasm in spite of the poor start due to technology issues.
Are there some of the garden clubs that wanted to be involved?
We had
there?
a representative of the beautification committee was there, Cindy Fortner. There was some Trillium Garden Club people. The garden clubs are still a little bit behind the times. There's all about the beauty for the human eye. So it's just
So the
matter.
Municipal Garden Club?
I
Did you get any?
don't know for sure.
They might have been on Zoom trying to.
There was some, yeah, I don't know. But you know, it's just gonna be an outreach, like it's just retraining how we think about lawns and gardens. And then as the more people that are like informed and interested, then the more, you know, the more progress. Yeah.
Do we have demonstration projects in town already?
there are, there are a lot of different groups doing this kind of thing. So as far as this particular group, pollinatorpathway.org, I know people are doing it, yeah, but I'm not totally in touch with them.
I was just thinking that if you had a demonstration project
Right.
that has been, it's growing and, it's in place and so forth, that you could show people.
Tour, yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of tours right now. I just got a whole thing. There's a whole bunch, but they're all down sort of near New Haven, but I think I sent it out to the people on the list, something about, there are gardens around. There are individuals and people who have
Right,
gardens.
I know
They're-
that. I was just wondering if
Yeah.
within our own town.
They're
whether or
here,
not-
there's some around here, yeah. But
And
specifically,
native
I can't
plants,
think
are
of-
you using native?
Well, that's the idea, but they are hard to get. They're almost impossible to get.
There are some native nurseries
Yeah.
around.
I know, there's a few.
So, so the focus is going to be on the is to install and create the pollinator gardens along the Tri-Town State
Well,
Trail
I think
to start.
we haven't fully set goals. This was more like the introduction.
Okay.
And I think people are gonna come back with their goals and ideas, but I think we'll have small goals, which is getting people to sign up their own lawn, their own individual property or their own business to kind of get people started like that. And then a medium goal is to work with the ECCD to help plant rain gardens and along the trail. And I think they're talking, because they've got funding for the whole Tri-Town Trail to do like, I think, rain gardens and planting along the way.
Now, do we need to coordinate with the Parks and Rec and so as
Probably eventually.
yeah, just know that people they don't come back and mow it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, stuff like that.
I think Michelle Maitland was in, she's at the meeting. So I don't know specifically who that would be.
Well, I
She's
think
DPW,
yeah,
right?
if at the next session you have kind of like a game plan
Right.
or an outline,
Mhm.
then I think, we can go to the town staff to make sure it gets coordinated.
Mhm.
right?
Well, that's the thing. Next meeting, we're gonna set up some goals because you can only do what the people in the
Right,
room want
wanna
to do. And I didn't set up a whole bunch of like, we're gonna do this and this and this. I want people to come back with like, we're small to large,
I would think the rain guard people would have worked with the town already, and if they've already got plans,
Yeah.
they should have already contacted the town
Yeah.
about doing the trails. Again, I'm making
I would-
possibly a dangerous assumption.
Yes, I would not make an assumption.
I
And people are coming and going. I mean, there's the
know,
town
but I'm
staff
just
has
saying
been
that,
decreased.
they already started the process,
Yeah.
so it'd be nice if they did that step.
Yes.
It's not.
I think ECC, all these people everyone's involved in this to some, everyone's got a finger in the pie, so I think more will be revealed as we go forward. But we're off the ground, let's put that.
All right.
It was a great first meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was so mortified that I was just so freaked out that I just couldn't even.
Yeah, if people were just so interested, I think it was a really good start.
Good. The technical problems. It wasn't smooth. I had a whole vision. I had a whole start. I had everything.
Would you like to get like a dry run before the next meeting?
Well, yeah, it was. I was supposed to be here. I was locked out. Supposed to be, yes.
It's a Zoom piece.
No, I was just saying, so let me know before the next meeting. We
Yes.
could do the dry
Sure,
run
sure.
before the meeting.
Yes.
Doing it during the meeting
Yes,
is
I
not
know.
a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Okay.
But it should have been straightforward, like here.
Yeah, that
It
room,
should
I
be.
think the software in that, they haven't used that room in a long time. We were in that room and things didn't seem to be functioning smoothly.
The council.
Yes, they haven't met in there since the pandemic. They're meeting over,
In the Thrive 55.
Oh,
Yeah,
over.
right.
Same.
so I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on.
All right. We're in 7:42. Oh, the next was just that we're in. Let's see. December 22, I guess we can wait a bit. June 22nd. That was this was the one that another letter to her this was on about the parcel that we identified to clarify the ownership issue. And so the letter went to Denver, if you guys saw that. Then I did get a reply that he was going to kick off the process subcommittee, whatever the process was to do that. After that, I then got a call about the fact that they were interested in trying to update or define the process.
This is the town council.
It's not council.
And actually, the formal meeting on the municipal TV that was held by the town council that I reviewed, so about a half hour long. They have a subcommittee established right now for the town council to review the process to give to the town manager to how you're gonna review.
So
all your
there
parcels.
was a process with the defined committee that we were going to then work with. Then the town council came in and said, well, remember the last town council, that we want to relook at the process. So I'm kind of now scratching my head going. Not sure where this is going, but I guess it's something that I keep pushing, right? So that's kind of on my plate to keep nudging about where this is.
And in parallel with that, I've continued to do research. Now that the town vault is reopened, I can make appointments to go in there. So I have started, I've already made 4 trips in there, spent 2 hours at a shot, researching the land records, okay, and updating. I provided to Noah, the GIS guy, at least probably 60 to 70 updates. And with the vast majority of those are included in those updates are where there is protection. Okay, so that we don't need to go to the town council. I found one document, just for full disclosure here, I found was that the town council has been approving the Parks and Rec regulations on a recurring basis, particularly back from 2000 all the way up to 2015. Okay. And in that regulation that they approve on about every other year basis, because the golf course always wants to change their regulations or whatever, it's principally with the drivers, but there's an inventory of all the town properties that they include. And in that, there's open space, there's parks, there's cemeteries, there's this whole laundry list, 2 pages of individual parcels by parcel names, okay, not by PIN numbers. So I was able to convert the parcel names to PIN numbers and then help, because I talked to the Parks and Rec director and he was kind of a little bit, I haven't really dealt with this at all because he's taken over, but he hasn't submitted any updates since he's taken over. So, but because it's town council approved, and it said that this is a open space area, I don't need to go get other
Town council.
approvals, okay? So that's all, Noah has all these updates.
Any of those address the 4 properties we specifically did?
The 4 properties that we had are not included in.
Okay. That was
So we
gonna be
still
my
need the
guess.
process to look at those. basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and it's not 100%, but I made a lot of progress on a lot of other ones, but we were at 55 when we started here. We're probably down to about 10 now.
Awesome.
Okay.
So when you go in and take a look at them, what are you actually?
Well, what I do is I find, because all I had previously was access to what's on the GIS, which is the last deed that got filed.
Right, got it.
Most of these deeds, it turns out, give me a reference to a map that I now need to go pull the map up, okay? Because you can't cross-reference that unless you go read all this stuff and pull up and then get the cross-referencing and find the map, and then the map will say, oh, this is open space. Okay, if the map says it's open space, that's as far as I'm going with this. I'm not going to try to. It's good enough in my book. The town says I got a map here that says this is open space. Okay, because that's how the developer did it. Now there's a couple of problems where there's issues. One of the things that's got me really scratching my head right now is that this back in October, the town council approved taking on 20 acres right up off of maybe housing off of Dungeon-Water. Okay, across from the NFCU there, and the town council, because it was supposed to be given as a open.
This right up here?
No, it's on Country Road, so it's kind of
Oh, I thought you
off
said
on the other
Maple.
side of Route 12 there. But, yeah,
Is it? No,
that's Route 184, keep going up north. Yeah, that's gonna do up, but it's just to the west of that area, to the west,
So by
right?
the-
Right, yeah, right there, where your finger was, right in there.
Right in there?
There's 20 acres that the town was, that the developer was supposed to be providing to the town. The town council accepted that, but the records they haven't processed the deeds and stuff. Here it is, 7 months later. So I don't know how this process works. And that's kind of
Not very well.
not very well. So this is the kind of problems you run into, that things can drag themselves out in a real time situation. Some of this stuff has been happening. Watch out.
So we have acquired 20 more acres.
We haven't technically, because the guy, it's still, if you go look at the land records, it's still with the developer.
Is this a, have we talked about this particular piece before? Or is this, you all of a sudden? you
Yeah, we
just
looked
discovered
at this, we did discuss this piece last August. Okay, and the town was accepting it as open space, 20 acres, it's all vacant and stuff, and I walked it, I drafted up a parcel plan for it, a structure plan for it.
it, Pleasant Valley Road?
Yeah, this is North Pleasant Valley Road.
Okay, it's that,
It's a very kind of long
right,
stretch.
yep,
Right,
where and off of North Pleasant Valley Road, there's just no place to park
right.
to access it. Got it.
Back to the point.
Back to the point, right, that's a good example of a place, not, well, technically you can
Right.
park along the maybe housing road there, but that's it. Okay. But that's back in that area, there's a lot of, there's some deer stands that are already installed for the locals and all that kind of stuff.
Get ready.
Yeah. So, but that's the kind of things that, yeah, and the other thing is that the parcels, the big parcels like the Joel property, the South Road one that we did, those are all foreclosures. And that's really what happened when the foreclosure comes through. The town, I have no documentation of what happens after that process.
Well, that's what gets screwed up.
That's where the process comes in.
It's the worst case is the foreclosure.
Yeah, the worst, just like the most recent foreclosures up by, next to the Circassias on the King property there, or the, Kalinowski School. There's 4 acres there that were added, and I don't know what happened, now those, the town, they did process those, the court does a good job of getting those turned over to the town. Because, and those are town properties now, but what happens with those to be moved to be dedicated, they're in the process.
But that's an argument that we've had on the conservation commission. So, but it's nice to see that it's, you guys are.
Trying to elevate it here.
Yes.
I mean, it's definitely being worked.
Yeah, it's gonna be a slow process, but I think what we need to do from a conservation commission is the town councilors are going to be looking for some input from people, from interested groups. I think we need to be proactively volunteering our time to be supporting
On the
them.
properties we've identified.
Right, because we want to see some of the stuff to go all over, because most people think, oh, how can I make some money on this through taxes, and each, just like everything is zoned to make money in the town for all intents and purposes.
So to cycle back to the updates you give to Noah, does he then validate to you that he's checked the box and they're now in the?
Yeah, he'll send me an email back. He said, he gave me one because he knew that the meeting was coming tonight. He says, I'm working these. He's got other priorities that he's working
That's the
on.
last I saw was I was working though, so.
Yeah. So they're not done yet.
Okay, but he will proactively send you a.
Yes. When he says, yeah, he does send me an email that says it's all done. And so and then I go and I do some spot checking and make sure it's happening the right way.
Okay.
Because I've got all the changes that I've got the hard copy where I penciled everything in, and I got the email that I sent him, and then I can go check those out.
What size is it, may I ask, acreage on the range?
For what?
On these 60 some odd ones that you now,
Oh, this goes from 0.01
okay,
acre all the way up to the 100 acres. Okay, it's a complete range.
Yeah, that's why we picked the subset we did earlier.
Right.
As long as we're on the point of parcels, I also got an update that the Wolfbrook property process for acquisition is in a good space according to John Ryan.
Okay.
Well,
That means
I-
you might have
That's
enough
technical
money and.
definition.
No, they got the money, so I cut down the picky list, because there was a time there that it was.
I heard there was, it was.
There was a time there it was kind of like, and I was sworn to secrecy not to say anything.
Right,
So at this point, though, he says he believes everything is
it's moving.
moving forward in
Progress.
the right direction, and it's okay, because I specifically asked him on that. So I can at least share with you, I didn't want to share the negative, I was told not to share the negatives, but I can share the positive.
Yeah, especially if it's not definite, there's no such.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at that point,
Yes,
it was,
sharing it
they were
indefinitely.
negotiating.
Yeah, it's all negotiation, so.
Yeah.
So that seems to be a good spot. So that's good. So that, I mean, we've got a stewardship plan in the waiting.
Yeah, it's all,
So-
and Ghost is all okay with it, so it's ready to go. But except I need to update it for the MS4.
For the MS4 stuff. Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting. So that'd be the first one that we could
Right.
update.
Right, so that's come, I've got to pay
And
particular attention. to
that
all
actually
this.
would be a good one to do.
Yeah, oh, it's a
given
very good one. to do.
Where that property is and all the.
Yeah.
Say all the drainage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap in that stuff.
Yeah, it's a big property, 160 acres. so.
So that'd be a good test case.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Which one is?
The Wolfbrook.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, good. Let's see. Now we're into Michelle and the open space stewardship program
Yes.
handbook or whatever.
So I
whatever the name is.
started creating a version of the stewardship handbook for us. It's not ready for me to share with you guys yet, because I didn't get very far, but what I did was, I still haven't gotten a new one from Avalonia or the one from GOSA. I'm gonna ping them, but I figured I'd start with the existing Avalonia
Yeah.
handbook. Sort of get a sense of, the outline and the pieces that are relevant to us, and start piecing together that. And then ping them and say, hey, do you have the new ones yet? But I'm hoping by next month's meeting to have something for you guys to look at, for us to discuss, are these things we want in there.
I was gonna suggest is that it would be possible prior to next month's meeting to kind of blast it out to us. So that we can look at it and come prepared to.
The thing, if you, just from how I've been doing other things here to make sure that they get into our packet, is that you get it to the staff person
Like the week
or to
before or
Larry
something.
the week before.
Yeah, I've been giving, you're doing some of this, some clear work, I'm doing now the package and front end.
By the way, they said, I'm not doing this tonight, they said I don't have to, so I guess they're gonna watch the video and create this from the video, so it's not. I should never ask a word.
We'll see what happens.
So what happens? I mean, I mentioned stuff that I was interested in, but I didn't try to take minutes for the whole meeting, because then it's hard to participate and do the minutes.
Yeah, no, I.
But yeah, so I will try to get some to you guys all ahead of time. It may not.
Well,
happen.
look, even if it's outlined for, I mean, it doesn't, I mean,
No, I understand.
I'm not looking for a complete document that we
No, I-
edit. I'm looking for, hey, here's a sense of
Here's,
what's.
here's,
yeah,
here's
it's an
the
outline, sense that-
outline
Right,
of what we might want to have in there. And then we can, check if we have all of the
the
elements.
pieces, right, that'd be the next step. is just to
Okay,
say-
so I will take as an action to provide an outline for the next meeting.
Alright.
I got stuck on starting to actually try to fill the verbiage, and like, wait a minute, I need to get the big picture first, and then we can fill in the
Outline,
details.
this is your sweet spot.
I
Come
know,
on.
I got caught up in the details, and it's like, oh crap, this isn't where you go right now. in the weeds.
This is, what do you tell your
I'm
students? Come
so
on.
right into the weeds, like, this isn't the right place.
Okay. 7.3.8, open space education program. I'm given all this other stuff going on. I mean, because you almost could look at the pollination stuff. Is a bit of outreach.
Okay.
That was not a Freudian suite. I don't know what that was.
Nor was it Freudian slip.
But it's
Slip.
Freudian
A sweet.
slip.
He said sweet, Freudian sweet.
Wow, 2 in a row.
Jeez. Please, Biden. We can't get two words out.
But there's a lot.
There's
A lot going on up there. Yeah, it just doesn't come out there. So, given, I mean, a lot of stuff that's going on, is there, I'm almost thinking that all these point solutions, if you will, the stewardship program per se, the pollination.
There's a lot of reaching out that we're doing.
you know,
It all contributes to outreach, it's kind of an organic thing.
Yeah,
It's like, at this point, do we, you know, I think we need to do outreach, we do it. Our website outreach,
right.
so
That's
I
kind
think
of what
we're
I
doing
was.
it as part of our process.
I still like the idea of, because I was at plant sale, garden clubs, this weekend. And they had some really nice tables set up, one about invasive species, one about native plants. So I still like the idea of having presence at a fair or activity. I've swept up with the pollinator business in COVID this last whole month, so I haven't thought that through, but if there's some kind of fall.
I
I
think
think
if
it's a good
they're
idea.
having the fall festival, I think it'd be a good idea for us to have.
Just because people come and ask questions and you meet and you network and it's just a nice way to connect.
The
Yeah,
fall
and
festival
we-
is run by the town.
Yeah.
So would anyone volunteer to at least approach that, so A, are we having one? B, what's the process to have a booth? And then if that's the case, then we gotta kind of reconvene and say.
But like I said, I went to that other thing up in Woodbury and I took a picture of the Conservation Commission, like I took a picture of everything they had there. And we could easily put something together. you know.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that people are unaware of the app, right?
Yeah,
And, or the pollination program, or the fact that, you know, by then hopefully Wolf Book has been approved. And, you know, or the Tri-Town Trail, I mean,
Right.
there are a lot of things happen.
so we need some money for, I'll look into it a little bit. Who would I ask to think?
I think I tried it last week, time we talked about this. And it wasn't showing. And so I don't know if they've reestablished it yet or not, or if they know.
Because I remember I'm going up to France for the birth of my grandchild in October. Or something. And I think we thought it was like the 8th, maybe.
Yeah, this one is typically has been a
Yeah.
Columbus Day
Then
weekend
I'd be here.
in the
Yeah, the
past.
Saturday-
Recess
the
was
Saturday,
winter, so
But the thing is that it's not showing that I could see
On the website. you
on the
mean?
website.
Okay, so I'll just ask them.
I mean, but before we go through all that, is there a consensus that assuming all that happens, that because we would have to staff it and support it, that we as a commission support a booth at a fall festival, assuming there is one?
Yeah.
Is that kind of like the feedback from folks? I get a yes?
How many days is
Is it
the,
a one or
It's,
two?
it's a one-day
It's a Saturday, right?
Saturday.
Yeah.
It starts like at 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
and
that's
It's
fine.
over like by 2 or 3
Okay.
o'clock.
Yeah, no, it's not a one day.
It's the preparation, it's not the.
Oh,
actual
right,
day.
it's right, it's- Well, you still have to be there. to support it.
Some, yes, yes, yes.
So I see yeses. Okay, all right.
And we don't all have to be there.
No,
We
no,
can-
I'm just,
No,
I'm
you
just-
there's
we
not
don't
room
know
for all
yet
this
until we.
right there.
They could do shifts.
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah, I think we could do, anybody does an hour or 2 hours or something.
Anybody that's in town,
And it's a time.
I said, anybody that's in town does a shift.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, now moving right down to the end of this. Support reduction of plastic use. All right, so we actually did that. I haven't heard anything about the state styrofoam bill. Is anyone?
It's-
it did not pass. It was not brought up for a vote as far as I know.
Yeah, because I didn't hear anything about it.
No, it passed committee or, yeah.
Oh, it came out of committee, but they
It
never.
came out of committee, but never was brought up, is my, yeah, pretty sure.
Is solid waste on there?
Just what?
Is solid waste and industrial. codes?
Not in this action item, that's coming up next.
Okay.
So this was 742. (7.4.3) reduction of solid waste. And then there was 2 things here. I mean, there was a very large article in the Day a few weeks ago on solid waste. Saw that. But you're gonna check with the town about the program need?
I was gonna check with the town and the person who was in charge or had been in charge has can't get in touch with them. So I have to go to head of Parks and Rec to see what where the town is. But there was another article in the paper about solid waste plans in the state. And basically, it's a mess. That's sure the short answer. There's a lot of interest in doing different projects. One project we've talked about here is food scrap separation. And what's come in the whole solid waste issue about where we're supposed to go from here has been brought on by the closing of the Hartford incinerator, which was had up to 50 towns that were making contributions to it. And as of the 1st of September, they put a chain across the driveway, turn everything off, and that's the end. And then now all these towns now have to figure out what they're going to do in place to that. So initially there were 6 burning plants in the state of Connecticut, and there are 4 left. They're out there that have to be now figured out how they're going to distribute the state to it. Each town, community, what they're going to do. And so everybody's now, especially the ones who are part of the MER group that was up in Hartford, are trying to come up with something else. The state has established a sustainable material management coalition of a whole variety of interested parties to come together to talk about the whole big issue. And it's something that's just came together this spring. And they're looking at a variety of elements of solid waste, such as food scraps. They're looking at improved recycling. And the big item is something that we're going to probably have a discussion in this town soon, is what's called unit-based pricing for disposal of your garbage. What Stonington does. You buy the bag, and depending upon how much you just dispose of in the way of garbage depends on how big a bag you need. So if you need a bigger bag, it costs you more.
So right now, excuse me, right now the fire districts do their own, because we pay $250, $300 a year for our waste disposal to a private party. So we're not doing it through any town agency. So,
Right.
So
They're contracted by the town.
no,
No, they're contracted by the fire
By
district.
fire district, okay.
That's how the town has pushed that responsibility out.
Oh,
right.
But other towns aren't organized that way because
Right.
Groton's special.
But the problem is that the town of Groton solid waste gets picked up by all these different fire districts and so forth. It all goes to now Lisbon to be burned. And what we need is fewer items going up there, so the tonnage is less.
Right, reduce the tonnage.
Reduce the tonnage, reduce the cost. And looking at different ways of getting a handle on that. But they hold up Stonington is their particular program is a very successful one. And one of the data set that's out there that the average Connecticut produces 740 pounds per capita of solid waste per year.
That's it?
So each one of us
That would drive
produces
people very
roughly
crazy.
740 pounds per capita. Stonington is producing 390 pounds per capita per year.
When they went to the unit.
As soon as you go to pay as you
it went
throw,
down.
the trash just disappears. People just,
Right,
Become
another way
very
to get rid of
conscious.
it.
Well, careful.
no, they become very conscious of, and they compost, and composting takes 40% right off the top, you know? So,
So one of the other ways of reducing is food scraps. We've had a discussion here. And there was a program on public television about food scrap separation and what's happening in the state of Connecticut that came out about 6-8 weeks ago. And this particular article in the paper supported this, that right now, Middletown is about the only place that right now is trying to act. They have a pilot program in place to collect organic waste in one color bag and the rest of your trash in another color bag. And they both go into the same trash can. Hauler picks them up, takes it to a sorting location, pulls out the orange bags, which the trash is, and the green bags for organics. And the organics are there's only one place right now outside of Southington that is a bio plant where it's taking all this material and it is then generating methane gas, which then is used into the pipelines for industrial heating and so forth. And they're showing a demonstration project where you can take all this waste, you can produce a byproduct very useful, and then after the material is worn down, if you will, it's then used for fertilizer. And then they're composting it now and selling it as fertilizer. The problem is that the whole plant is very expensive to get started. And it was a pilot project. Right now, it is only running at something like 60 to 70%. We would love to have more towns start bringing stuff into it. And the problem with it is that there are some communities that want to do it, but they're an hour away in transportation. And so then that becomes the cost factor that nullifies the whole effort. What's needed that if you want to go in this bio reduction and containment of this, that you need a whole bunch of them around the state. And right now, the state of Connecticut is not on board saying what a great idea, and we'll financially start backing it.
They will in garbage.
Well, the other is that the Scarab project, where he wants to do the same thing, take all our organics, make it into fertilizer, without all this.
I was gonna say a lot cheaper.
And local.
Yes,
Well, you don't capture methane gas, but you do, but it's a low cost option for generating
absolutely.
compost.
I had 2 calls into David Aldrich, but he didn't get back to me. I guess he's on vacation or something. But just to update his status of, apparently he's still looking to confirm the properties. He's working with engineering. This is I got secondhand from someone else who was able to get through. He's working with an engineering firm now, so to whittle down the choices. And he originally asked, I think, for a parcel of 16 acres. Now he's down to 8 to 10 acres. He thinks he can do it on. He's making progress with the site. They finished 2 pilots. I know it's starting to make a pilot. And so, you know.
But what he's done, he's seems to be
Aerobic.
much further along than anybody else.
Yeah.
And one of the drawbacks that he found in trying to put this whole project, his pilot program together, is that there was no resource within the state of Connecticut. He had nothing to help out to put his whole composting program together. And he had to get a permit from it. And since DEP is not familiar with it, it took a very long time to get for the Stonington project up and going. They almost had to rewrite the regs.
He talks about a year,
Wow.
like years, like he'll be ready, a permit was in the works, he anticipated a 1.5 to 2 years to even just get a permit, just to
Wow.
pave an area and start a, you know, a Simple aerobic.
I've worked with DEP on discharging permits for another project years ago, and it was unbelievably slow. And the people that you worked with at the time were just career paper pushers, and they could care less about your particular project. You know, I'll get to it tomorrow, maybe, or the next day. They're very, very, and so DEP is any siting of any recycling operation, composting operation, all has to be okayed by DEP. And unfortunately, they just don't have the staff or time to do a lot of this. So it's a pretty frustrating point right now across the state in this. Dave Aldridge seems to have one of the better concepts, and he's already done some pilot projects. There are towns that are going out and getting money and duplicating his efforts to do something.
It does need to be smaller, local to avoid transportation costs.
Yes.
So that's part of it. So it's actually a better solution. So speaking of that, then I know they're having staffing problems here in the town. They do have some good candidates, I've been told, for sustainability manager,
Oh, good.
which is, even though we're not getting staff to support us, that one is there. That then, to me, would be the place where we push these things. So I think as that comes up, I think it's incumbent upon us to push priorities for the sustainability manager as much as we can. I mean, solid waste disposal gotta be, you know, the top 5, top 2, I don't know. I mean, I know we talk about, you're not gonna hold the ocean back. You know, no matter how, so how much can you do? This is something you can actually do something.
Yeah.
And home composting is a starting point A. Just get people, individuals to compost at home. You know, that's 40% of the waste stream is organic, compostable organic. So that's outreach. That's the next outreach after the pollinator pathway.
Put that on a booth.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So it's, I'd be interested, and we used to have access to data about how the solid waste is doing in Groton. And so I've gotten away from that. I don't ask that question once a year, so I'd like to see that, find out that data. I'll bring it back to to see what we got.
Larry can make a spreadsheet for us.
I have a spreadsheet. Okay. The next one, it just says that they hired, the town has hired a consultant on this, climate change stuff, but there was no date when that activity would be forthcoming. So see what happens. That's all I have on that, is that they at least, we tend to spend money on studies, not necessarily do things, but we spend money on studies. So there's a study. And
Replacing the Bruce.
oh, that one is not going well. I don't think we had any, last 2 weeks or they have not had any applicants.
Replacing who? Oh,
Bruce.
Oh. Wow.
So, maybe something's changed in the last 2 weeks. I don't know. I suggested at least get some summers here, so we have a lot of college students. Let's put these guys to work. So anyway, and then 747, basically we talked somewhat about it because it was access, public transportation. So I think I'll link that into that piece. So I think we actually got through the list today, something about a half an hour. So we're making progress on stuff, folks. So let me stop sharing there.
Just as a side, like you're getting prepared, the Groton Fall Festival, the last time it was run was Saturday, October 5th. 2019, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Quantic Plains Park, and it's hosted by the Town of Groton Parks and Rec
Thought it might have been Parks
and the
and Rec.
Greater Vistic Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
Two hosts.
Yeah, I would. All right.
And you don't, we wouldn't have to pay for a booth there.
I don't know how
think
it's.
so.
It's $50 for general people to.
Yeah, but we're part of
They
the
shouldn't,
town.
We're part of
right,
town.
they shouldn't have us pay for it.
Hopefully there's some budget to make some banners.
I'll just send a bill to the town, and pay for it. That's all. Okay, next one is open space stewardship workshops action log. So you're, some of which you've already talked about.
Yeah, yep. There's nothing other than what I already said.
Okay. UConn Project 2022. So, as you know, this was a joint project by the Planning and Development and the Conservation Commission. And let me try to open it up. Okay. Share. Screen share. Footprint.
I have to make it stop third.
We should be done by 7:30.
Apologize.
Let the record show. Kristen is abandoning the
I'm so
commission
sorry. I will see you next time.
as of 6:55.
The record doesn't have to show that. No one's taking minutes, so.
They're gonna take minutes once they watch the video.
Okay, all right. Bye, everybody. Sorry.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have to attend another meeting.
See if the username popped up. Well, let me- that was up there. Okay, so. We kind of gave them, John and I gave them two basic objectives. One was oriented towards a tool for the public to use in estimating their individual carbon footprint, right, per home, per car, et cetera. Based upon the, I'll get to the end. That one, we felt that it wasn't ready for prime time or of interest to put it out there in the community. There's some online things, and Tom showed me a couple that, we could provide a link to that is much more user friendly in terms of estimating the person carbon footprint information. The second part of the objective was to provide a mechanism for the town to evaluate several things. One would be town expenditures on transportation and or building investments and how that would work out. And to aggregate that to talk about the town's progress on mitigation of their carbon footprint. And the other one was on a commercial one where you could potentially evaluate submissions for building permits on how they would impact the community. And based upon, John's view that 90% of all permits for commercial stuff tends to be restaurants. That's what they have, but that's what's the focus of it. So that's not bad. I mean, what they did was pretty good, and I think that's usable. But it's a tool that will be used by the staff, not necessarily the public. And
That would make sense anyway.
Yeah, I mean, now, so when you look at this, just quickly out here, did I send the link in the agenda? Probably not, because I'm not sure I wanted this out there. So,
I think that, putting out the link to a person, your own personal footprint, you said that it was, information out there or a little program that's out there that you can determine what your carbon footprint is. That might be interesting.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting.
so we can put that on our website.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that'd be kind of cool,
Public
yeah.
website. All right, so,
Yeah.
and,
Determine your footprint.
Yes.
to add,
Yeah, that would be a good spot for it.
Yes.
all right, on this one, what I'll do is I'll probably get this model out to you guys for information purposes. I mean, they did a lot, I guess I kind of skipped over. There was a lot of research they went through, that's kind of where you start, right? So there's a lot of background and research information, statistics that, you might be interested in looking at in terms of at the state level and the comparison of different types of approaches. And the other, oh, I'm sorry, there was another category. The other category was the distribution of the type of residencies and the carbon footprints of those different residences. So if you look up on the screen, you'll see they have single family, attached, detached, apartments, 2-4 units, et cetera. And they have different information content, so that one of the things that the town can do is to look at, I think we've got 18,000 homes, residencies, is look at the distribution of those, kind of set a baseline. And, as people start to convert to solar energy or other things, start to look at what happens as we go through over time. So some of this stuff is a long-term measurement program. So this kind of starts as baseline. So that's, residential greenhouse gas emissions, that's the GHG. And then the transportation one is the type of vehicle. You get to put in how many gallons, per year, and that'll tell you, how much effluents you do. Versus Groton vehicle emissions. So this is where we can look at the town fleet, right, over here, and then put in there what they're currently doing. And as they make investment decisions to go to the town council, the point would be use this data, says, look, here's the impact if you buy diesel. And it's the same thing that, I guess the post office just wants to buy all diesel vehicles, right, rather than something with a little less impact. And there's a lot of efforts going on trying to stop that and to do it, but you need data. So you need to say, look, how many tons do you put out, of carbon emissions versus not? So, I mean, those are the kind of things that the model here does, or at least allows you to do. The commercial one, as I mentioned, small office buildings, restaurants, was particularly put out, again, because that's the vast majority of permits. The solar, the piece was, the benefits of solar versus not. This gets into the personal one, but but one can feed the town's building investments from this data, which I think has the better use. And if I go to the end, we did ask him to take a social cost impact, and the social cost impact was one that says, if you remember the plastic bag analysis that I worked through, that says it's just not the fact that a bag costs 0.01 cents. What's the total life cycle of that, right? So there's a total life cycle cost. So this one, what's the social cost because there's health impacts and health costs. I mean, when you look at all the elements, there's a much different cost benefit analysis than if you just looked at the price of a gallon of diesel versus the green, the gigawatt of energy from green source. You got to
Oh, yeah.
expand the view. So this was an attempt, and again, this is student research, right? So, but at least it's some certified, I guess, something certifiable sources on social impact costs is based upon the amount of let's call it pounds of effluent that you generate. So I think there's some useful data here. Now, making use of the data is something else. So I think we can use it as source material, which is why I want to send it to you guys for other things we're doing. And then, I'm going to be working with the town staff to take advantage of this, in their analysis. It might come around where we then support a staff recommendation.
Right.
From a conservation point of view, using some of the same data. So, by now that I'm a data-driven guy. So,
What?
yeah, I know, it's a shock. It's a shock. You never would have figured that. So, but people do respond to facts rather than general things, right? The problem I have with this whole data center argument is that there's not a lot of facts there. It's gotten very emotional.
Yep.
Without, realistic,
Without the data,
without the data.
for the data centers.
So
So Larry, is there something equivalent, like what Ray's idea was, what's your carbon footprint with the vehicles or like a personal vehicle?
yes, that's in that same model. There's your vehicle and your house.
Okay,
And
so.
you put in your particular square footage, it puts in,
Okay.
right, so that's there for a personal
Okay,
analysis. Like I
but not
said,
many people does, but what if you're trying to make a decision about buying a vehicle?
I'm trying to remember.
That's a little bit trickier to probably.
It didn't have,
There, I don't recall, I know that I have seen one that'll tell you that, they'll give you that information, there is a.
But not in this.
Not in this.
yeah,
Right, that's fine, I just was curious, because
I mean, that's a different,
it's
that's,
a whole
that's,
different, yes.
right, that's a different thing. It says, what's your life cycle
Well,
cost?
you talk about the life cycle stuff, I was wondering if there was a way to,
Well, that's a different thing, because then you gotta say, what's the life of your batteries? What's the cost of
Right,
replacing
okay.
the batteries? What's the cost of disposable reuse of the
right,
battery?
I was just wondering if that wasn't part.
That wasn't part of that. This was, it was.
That's fine, then we'll just stick with
Simple.
we'll just stick with the what's your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. So that's that, but again, that takes a lot more work. I mean, it took a lot of work to figure out the life cycle cost of a freaking plastic bag.
I know it's a lot, yes.
So trying to
Yeah.
figure out of a car is,
Oh, yeah,
and especially when we don't have the data because they haven't been out there long enough.
Right.
Right, we don't really know.
right, I was
Yeah.
just. it's
Okay, no,
just- yes or
just-
no, it's
I'm
fine.
thinking about it and I'm going.
I was
you know,
curious
You
if
don't have
that
like,
level
you don't have the
was in
source
there.
data, you have
Yeah.
guesses, people have made guesses on it,
Right.
but not what I call real.
Yeah, not enough data points. to-
Yeah. So anyway, so I will forward this as the file itself to you guys. So that you can kind of look at it. And there is a user manual. Which didn't pop up when I went and clicked it. So there is that. So it was an interesting exercise. You could kind of hit or miss with the kids.
Always,
You know.
always.
You know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
So. Let's get back to- Okay, well, actually, status of unprotected parcels, we kind of did that.
Well, I have.
Reuse committee, though.
Right, and we talked about the reuse committee, and then the other thing is that as far as on 30 by 30, I admit I did not get the PA 490 discussion going on with the planning and zoning people, Sutherland. But I have I've done additional resources in this past month. The state of California has a separate initiative where they have turned it into law to make it 30% of all California being protected. Okay.
And what does protected mean?
Yeah, they
He
actually,
asked with an innocent.
Yeah,
Really?
innocent question.
yeah,
It's
they,
a loaded question.
let's see, get it up here.
Pre-fire or after the fire?
Really?
Oh my God.
It's what they consider by the state's own estimates, California has already protected 24% of its lands in a legally durable. That is a permanent manner, okay, legally durable.
That seems like a hedge.
Well, but one of the things in
Yeah, and
that,
in perpetuity, it's durable, which
Right.
means we can do it, but you gotta do more hoops.
right, and I think that's where we are today here, literally.
Well, yeah, literally, that's kind of what it is.
But with that, one of the biggest factors that they in their plan is to take a look at easements. And expand, and easements become a durable thing. Okay. One thing I have not done in our open space conservation plan, I just list 13 easements, and that's it. They're not counted per se in our calculations, and we don't document them on the inventory per se. Okay. And I found in my research, just in the 8 hours, I found 7 more easements.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Well, there are a lot, but they tend to connect things, don't they?
It's
They can.
They can, and that's, I haven't done a lot of research on these. I've got the volume numbers and page, because I haven't been focusing on easements, but I run across them, oh, here's the easement, it shows up.
What's interesting is that the more that you're poking through this, the more easements are coming up.
Yeah.
Because that was nobody really knew what the town had for easements. So therefore, when you got into the conversation with the planning department about, well, what open space do we have? Or what do we have that the town now has in its possession, doesn't quite know what to do with it at the moment.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to,
Is there an easement on it?
not to say anything about Deb here, but she actually has a file on planning and conservation easements for the town, okay? And she graciously let me look through, rifle through it, okay, at my leisure, okay, without her being around. I found with this, there's actually the little medallions that we talked about on Pet Court there. Oh, she's the one she's got the file all about them. Here's where I order them from and whole 9 yards, because it was all that easement was there's an easement that's tied to that. Okay, every 50 feet is supposed to be marked with this label and this whole 9 yards.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's good.
And she
to
had a
establish
pile,
source of
she
that.
has a pile of additional easements also. Okay, she had another 3 easements in there that she's been holding on in her 30 years plus being in a job.
So as
Across her disc.
as another phase of this analysis, easements which are, I view, relative to either a greenway or our path. What are we doing that called?
Right away?
No,
No,
you have
Yeah,
green ways by
ways.
the and green
States,
belts.
the green belts, yes, we got the belts there. So that, to me, if there's easements that are associated with the green belts or green ways, that would be of interest to see if that can, either accessibility to them or access, but.
Well, so that's one thing, you need to take a look at that. Let me finish up what I'm doing with
No,
the
no, no,
parcel
it's a
stuff.
future-
But I'm just letting you know, that's where, there's 2 areas now. I came up with the idea of the converting 490, the zoning of 490 lands, getting that to be more than just already established open space areas that say that, oh, we can take a 490 area and make it a CG or a CR area.
Codification of easements might be safer bet.
Yeah, and stuff, or else take a look, alternatively, taking a look at what easements we have. I'm learning more about how to go through the records here and find these things and finding out where they are, what is actually in the words, what they really mean, and is there additional protection on some additional lands that within the town. That the town is holding on private properties. So that's another area to help in on this 30% area.
Yes, okay, right, because that's not on anybody's radar.
Right.
All right.
Cool. Okay, so that's the other area I came up with. I haven't done very much beyond that, but that's.
No, that's good.
That's a lot.
That's great.
Next item was Long Island Future Fund Grant. That was submitted, I think it was submitted.
I have to track.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember why I put it on there.
That wouldn't help.
Yeah, well, there was a submission by the town to go after money, so that's kind of
Okay.
moving along. You know, as I've said, there's a lot more money that's being freed up in this whole climate change sustainability area. So it's gonna get, it's gonna get bigger rather than smaller. So, whatever the next round we do on the greenways thing to go after grants. When, do we know when the next tranche of fund or the submissions need to be?
The bonding board met, but they were all focused on other stuff. Here's the reality of life here is that the person that ran the OSWA program retired in April. And the person that I met him yet on Friday, he actually showed up, but I did not go into where OSWA was mentioned in the big picture, but just listening to this guy, he's not doing anything right now because he's just temporarily answering the phone. And he is not there out hiring the person's person. So nothing is happening on this, to be brutally honest with you. I got that information right from the guy because he sat right in front of me at the Greenway presentation. Because the lady that ran the Greenway program also runs the Oswald program.
So, but from the state's point of view, there's a submission date for some.
No, it's depending on the round of when they have. They have had a very the lady that was doing this for years and years had a very good drumbeat. Okay, so you put your applications in by February.
Right,
Or the announcement would be out in February for a due date in April or June, and then there'd be awards come, by October, she'd have awards going out on an annual basis. She left, program hasn't started, there's no 2022 announcements, so everything's falling apart.
Yeah, there's a huge number of people that.
40%. They had the deputy DUP director was the prime keynote speaker of this thing, and it was a recruiting video for if it had been recorded as far as on how I'm 40% down. I've got jobs galore. Come fill, please come.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's not good.
It's sad. I'm just being reality. I'm just being let you know what reality. That's the question. There is no next round. Okay.
Yeah,
There would have been, and it would have been in process right now, but the announcement never went out because she didn't do it because she was retiring.
Wow. Well, part of that, 11 million job openings in the US?
Yeah.
Something like
Well, a
that.
lot of them are deep, I can tell you that, but it's statewide because of the change in the retirement rules. You got to be off the rolls by the end of the month.
But we got a surplus.
Right?
That's why, there's nobody on the job. Oh,
Keith
goodness.
has been
Decimated.
decimated for a very long time.
And it's gotten a lot worse this year.
yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, and we're doing this and not getting paid.
You didn't get the memo on our raise?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Got doubled.
Double.
Double.
You're double. You're gonna get double your rate. Complete streets. I think you attended.
I attended along with Kristen. There's been 3 meetings of the Complete Street, which is being run by Andre Baumgartner as a committee. He's the town councilor on it. The NEMBA people, Brian Kent, as for Bike Groton Group, they had representatives from Parks and Rec. Mark Berry is there. But they've had 3 meetings. I've attended the first 2. I missed this last one because of family issues. But it's more focused on the presentation that they made to the town council as far as how do you really go when you have a street and you want to change the configuration of it, similar to what they did on Thomas Road there to add bike lanes and that type of stuff, or speed bumps and all those type of stuff, that's really where their focus is going. I don't see us as the Conservation Commission having a large part, I'll maintain myself as if they have something that comes of interest, but I don't see where this is,
Not a lot of overlap.
not a lot of overlap for us, to be honest with you.
And we really don't need to be sitting to things that really aren't in our,
In our lane.
yeah, we need to
Right.
kind of stay in our.
No, no, no,
lane for the
yep,
most
yep,
part.
we got to stay focused. And the last item that I had, unless someone wants to bring something up, is CLCC. There we go. So.
Good. Okay, this is me again. I attended 3 out of the 4 sessions of the community workshop that they had. It was all done online, 1.5 hour sessions each on various times throughout the months of February, March, and April. And the last session was on the 11th of May. So basically like once a month we were doing these things. And they brought together various land trusts, activities from, particularly in New London, some of the land open space folks, and it was hosted by the Connecticut, CLCC, the Connecticut Land Trust folks, because they had a grant from the Community Foundation to sponsor this thing. They have and so one of the things, so a lot of this, there was basically you had 2 questions. And then you put you into a little Zoom chat rooms, and then you expound as far as from your perspective. And so I was always talking from the Town of Groton Conservation Commission perspective. Ghosts would show up and respond from them, or somebody from Avalonia. But we also had regular players were from Salem, the city, the open space folks from New London. Now that's a very interesting group because they are very vocal, and because they have some real issues. A good example I'll just relay to you was that if you're in the town, the city of New London, and want to use a park and there's more than 4 people, you have to get a permit.
Yeah.
Yes.
You told us that, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that's the kind of
It's
stuff
like a
that they're
family
doing.
outing.
Yes, you can't
Yeah,
even bring
if you
your
have a
whole
big
family.
family, yeah.
Yeah.
You need a
So
permit.
people obviously ignore that.
I don't know, but these people are trying to get that. That's one of the things that this group is trying to change, okay, as an open space organization. Okay. So, and we had our final meeting, and that's the summary of that is this, was what added was here to give ideas as far as on who could, you could partner with to potentially having to listen to all these people, like the Long Island Sound people, they participated a couple of times. And so I said, there's a potential here for the Long Island Sound people, because I know we've always had an interest in the tidal areas and not having enough, and how to manage those and have better ideas, because we really just don't have a lot of interest, but we may be able to support them better. The other thing was, what could you offer? I offered our open space inventory process that we've been working with, if anybody wants to use that process. And then who you could be partnering with as far as, for other groups. And I basically, it says that, GOSA should be taking a look at partnering with, with Avalonia and all this kind of stuff in a more formalized manner. So that was my suggestion. So you can see how some of the other people talk about who the other people were from the other organizations. So it's in your notes.
Ray and I are both going, yeah, don't hold your breath on that one.
Well,
The problem, they're running out of people.
No, they're
to be
running out of
honest,
people.
To be on the board, to be honest with
they're
you.
aging out.
Yes.
And they're not getting that much support, to be honest with you. So that's one of the things that they are strongly looking at right now. They've had, GOSA's actually has some strategic planning sessions as far as on where they're going, because they're having a tough time finding replacements for the officers right now for next year. And that's one of the things. And there's also a grant, they've actually met with CLCC, and CLCC is for this whole region recognizes that there needs to be more consolidation, just for the for the aspects of volunteers not having a sufficient leadership pool to be drawing from. And what they've done is gone with the folks from the run that were from the Subway, the founders of Subway, that they've got funding right now that they will give you $25,000 to a land trust to go investigate how to go and consolidate. And so it's free money. If it doesn't work out, fine. But and so they are right now using that funding for Avalonia and the East Line folks. Okay, and there's other fundings available to do it for other organizations. And GOSA has looked into that. They haven't committed yet, but that's what they've had. I attended the preliminary discussions with Amy Patterson, that runs the CLCC. She basically, and GOSA has met with those other folks for they haven't committed yet. So just let you know, there are partnering things just because of the nature of, there's just a lack of people willing to take on the torch per se of the Sydney Van Zans and that whole crowd. And we can't even fill our seats here.
Yeah, we've got an open slot here. So.
You know, is that problem?
How much advertising have we done?
It's on the town website and the vacancy. It's listed. We're from the, it's the town clerk has the responsibility to keep that thing posted. List of all the opportunities. If you're from the link from the town website, that's about it.
Talking with Mark Berry, the newspaper, news thing that the Parks and Rec, what they're going to be doing this next season. So I think it came out three times a year.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion about wouldn't that be great to build as a to put something in about there's positions on the Conservation Commission. Would you like to be a member of it? And I think so. We came out 1 month or one time period. We had a little half-page advertisement about that, and then other groups succeedingly, moving forward. So it was another avenue.
Yeah, it's very hard to find it on the town website, but I have stumbled across it as far as.
Let me try and get they have this top level news,
Yeah.
breaking news. Let me see if I can get a breaking news segment in there for open. I'll take a shot at that. Other topics that are.
The retirement board made it. That's your top news thing.
All right, so everything I was going to say, I kind of spewed out there during the course of the meeting. So I don't have any other things. We don't have staff here to participate and support us. So
Move
that,
adjourned.
so are there any other topics, Michelle, that you would like to bring up? There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. There's been a second. Any debate or extensions thereof?
You can't debate the motion. You have to vote on it.
Well, yeah, you can have discussions.
So you can have
discussion.
Not adjournment.
Oh, damn you, Robert Rules of Order. All right. All in favor?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain. So, there we go. Thank you very much, and
Second Monday next month.
you get to end the meeting.
I'm ending it right now.
Okay.